Many people have asked me throughout the years, Marcus, will you ever get bottom surgery? And the answer has and will always be never. I do not like the female-to-male bottom surgery for multiple reasons. First of all, the procedure is very dangerous, and I do not want to risk the function to pee, my sexual function, and risk losing my life just to get something that will never be a penis. Second of all, I don't think it looks good, which is apparently controversial to say, but it's the truth. Instead of risking my life, my sexual function, and so on, just to get this surgery that I don't think looks good, I have for years worked on accepting my genitals as they are. I am trying my best every single day to work with what I've got. And I gotta say, despite having some bottom dysphoria from time to time, I'm happy. For me, the transition was all about passing, looking like the opposite sex, and I have achieved that. I have achieved that without getting the bottom surgery. And that means that like 98% of all of my gender dysphoria is basically gone or alleviated. It's so rare that I ever feel it, the symptoms of it. And I know that just working on yourself and self-acceptance won't work for everyone, every single gender dysphoric person, but it worked for me. I just have a feeling that if transsexuals focused on alleviating their gender dysphoria that has nothing to do with their genitals, the bottom dysphoria will end up being so much easier to handle, to live with. If you're a trans person happy with the results, happy with the surgery, I'm happy for you, honestly. But not only do I think it should be the last resort, I sometimes think it shouldn't be an option at all. Because it's so dangerous, because the results are not what someone might expect, and you know the complications and the trauma that might follow are just horrific. Today I'm going to talk about the male-to-female surgery, and let's react to the differences between the surgeries, because you can get the neo-vagina in multiple ways.
Let's talk about the different types of bottom surgery available to trans feminine people. Now, the end result is all the same, creating the same organ. However, there's a couple of different types of organs that you can use to create the canal, and they each have their advantages and disadvantages. Now, the most common technique uses the tissue from the shaft as well as some extra tissue from the sac to create a tube that is then inverted, put in between the rectum and the bladder, and that creates the canal. This is the most common technique, and most surgeons have a lot of practice in doing this kind of technique, so there's less of a risk than with some of the other techniques. However, the tissue is not elastic. It does require complete hair removal on the entire area before it can be put inside, and it does require constant dilation.
This is the surgery I think many of us have heard of before. One of the many downsides is if the trans woman has a shorter penis, if they even have a micro penis. We saw that with Jazz Jennings, the most famous trans kid, who was on puberty blockers when he was a kid, so therefore his penis never developed. When Jazz was 17 and was about to get his first out of 4 bottom surgeries, the surgeons were like, well, you don't have enough to work with to make the canal. That's a problem. That's a huge problem. The constant dilation also sounds very inconvenient, and I've heard it can also be painful from time to time.
Another way of creating the canal is by using the sigmoid colon. This tissue is a little bit more elastic, and it's also self-lubricating, although there are people that have complained that the lubrication is fairly consistent, so you will need to like wear a panty liner constantly, and the discharge can be a little bit smelly because it is coming from the colon. There's also a slightly higher risk of complications because you're dealing with surgery that involves the abdomen, but there is less hair removal, less need for dilation, and you have more tissue on the original organ to create the outer appearance if that is something that is an issue.
So that was a lot. Having to wear panty liners, the discharge smelling like caca is, I don't think inconvenient is the word I want to use. That was the surgery Jazz Jennings got. She had to. She had nothing to work with, tissue-wise, because her penis never developed. I want to make something very clear. I'm not making fun of the people getting the surgery. Like, ew, it's disgusting. Your hole smells like shit. Like, I'm not stupid. It's just so absurd, and I actually get a little bit angry. I don't think trans women deserve to get treated like this, medically. I know it's their own choice, but I cannot believe that doctors are turning trans women's penises into not a vagina. It's not a vagina, it will never be it, but a hole, and it smells like the trans woman's colon. And even though the person getting this surgery doesn't need to get laser hair removal and doesn't need to dilate as much, it doesn't matter. Your vagina is made from your colon? What? What's going on?
The third technique is very new for trans people, but has been used in cis women for reconstructive surgery for the canal for a long time. This is the peritoneum. It is the lining of the abdomen and has a lot of the same advantages as the colon, as well as having less discharge and no odors. Also, it requires less hair removal, but again, there's a slightly higher risk of complication. There's also the added unknown of this is a new surgery, so there's not a lot of long-term efficacy data.
This reminds me of the conversation about trans women wanting to get wombs. And trans activists have said, well, we've done it to cis women. First of all, they're just women, so drop the cis. Second of all, yeah, they're women. Women. Something trans women will never be. So, of course, it's more safe for women, like real women, to get the surgery. Don't think that it's beneficial for trans women to get it. Don't assume that it's safe. I don't think it's safe at all.
Yes, I can't believe I forgot about this. This is also called zero depth. And this is essentially where they just create the labia and the clitoris on the outside and don't have any canal on the inside. The recovery time is faster. It doesn't require any dilation. There's much less risk of complication, but you won't be able to have any sort of penetrative sex. There's also the potential that the aesthetics could be a little bit off because normally there is a hole somewhere and there isn't in this one. But it's definitely an option if penetrative sex is not something that's a priority for you.
I think this is the best, the safest surgery of the four. And I know some of you might wonder, well, they can't have sex. Isn't that really depressing? I think most trans women, no matter if they're pre-op or post-op, have anal sex. And it makes sense. It must feel better, even after getting the surgery. So I kind of get the zero-depth surgery. But as the person said, because there's no hole, aesthetically, it won't look like a vagina. And if this surgery is known for being less aesthetically accurate, it must mean it doesn't look like a vagina at all. I could be wrong. I haven't looked at many pictures. I've seen one picture of a neo-vagina and it did not look good. I'm sorry, it did not look good. As someone who has a vagina, it did not look like a vagina. You might think that trans women don't want to talk about the reality of getting the surgery, or, the surgery itself, but you're wrong. Let's listen to this trans woman.
Here are 3 things I find a little controversial about having bottom surgery as a transgender woman. First one is dilating. It is takes up so much time, especially if you've got a job. So it takes about 25 minutes every time you do it. So in the beginning, you do it for three times a day, and then 2 times a day, and then so on, so on, so on. But it takes ages to get to those steps. The second thing is you've got to reconnect with your genitalia. It's not straightforward, oh, it's going to work. No, because there's no connection between your new genitalia and your brain.
The last thing she said is so important. Your brain has to literally understand that you don't have a penis anymore. You have this hole, an operated hole. It must be so scary. I can't relate to it. I got my breast removed, but I didn't feel that way at all. My brain didn't feel that way at all. I'm not saying that she's not a real trans person. It's not about that. It's about how invasive the bottom surgery is. It's about the area. Getting surgeries done in your genitals is different than getting it on your chest. And speaking of who's a real trans person and who's not, I think it's entirely possible for a real trans woman to regret having the surgery. Maybe she was disappointed. Maybe she thought it would look different, look more like a real vagina. Maybe she's experiencing many side effects, complications. So having regret, especially when it comes to that surgery, doesn't automatically mean, oh, you were never trans.
You've got to find a new connection with that. It isn't just going to work like that, especially when it comes to having some fun stuff. And then the third one is the stench of your new vagina after having the surgery. It's not nice. So when they take the packaging out, you've got a live wound down there trying to heal. The closest thing I can reference for a smell is when you've got like a stretched ear, which I've had it when I was a teenager, and it's vile. If anyone else can think of anything that they weren't prepared for or they thought was a bit off-putting about that operation, let me know in the comments.
Thank you so much for making this video and for encouraging others to come forward. And also thank you to the other person who made the 2 videos I showed you today. I think it's so important to be honest about the surgery, the transition. And maybe these people think that I'm the devil, their enemy. Maybe we disagree on many things, especially about the transition, gatekeeping, should trans kids transition, and all of it. It doesn't really matter. No matter what you believe in, which side you're on, I respect you if you're being honest. It's especially amazing that we see people who are on the woke side speaking up and warning people about the complications, the risks of getting bottom surgery. Because they can reach people I can't, who will not listen to me, who hate me based on my other opinions. And I'm not going to change who I am or change my opinions just to reach those. I'm just saying, I am so happy to see that message, important message, being spread in communities that most likely will never listen to me, anti-woke trans people like me. My personal opinion is, do not get the surgery. I don't know what it's like for every single transsexual out there. I don't know every single transsexual's bottom dysphoria. But I know my own, and I strongly believe it is possible to work with what you've got in between your legs. I don't think getting the surgery is worth it, because at the end of the day, you will never be able to change your biological sex. Never. You will never be able to own the opposite sex genitals. Never. And the more you try to deny it, the more you try to lie to yourself about it, the worse you will feel mentally. It will not fix your lack of inner peace. I don't think it's possible to achieve inner peace by lying to yourself. And even though the truth can hurt. I mean, I don't love calling myself a woman to potentially millions of people, saying it over and over and over again. Everybody knows, especially in my small country, that level of honesty with yourself is so freeing. It is freeing to know that you can be honest with yourself, you can be honest with other people about who you are, what you are, and nothing bad is going to happen. Everything will be okay, and it's not the end of the world. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to see more content like this, remember to hit subscribe and the notification bell. Let me know what you think. I cannot wait to read your comments down below. Peace out.